Mats, thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate your time today. For anyone who doesn't know you, would you mind telling us a bit about your experience, 35 years in the industry, where you've worked, and what that looks like?
Sure. I've been 35 years in H&M. When I started H&M, we just opened up Holland. I think that was our fourth or fifth country. Just before I left, we were 78 markets, I think it was, and online. And so it's been a huge expansion, of course. Every fifth year, we double the turnover up to year 2000, I think it was roughly. So, and make a heck of a lot of money. So it was a good journey, and we had a good race there. What I've been doing at H&M, when I started, I was supposed to start in logistics. When I came home, I didn't know what logistics was because I was applying for a role as controller. But then they said, no, Mats, you should go logistics. I said, sure, I can do logistics. No clue what it was. But that was interesting, and that's how we started. And when I started in H&M, I got a schedule. This is what I'm going to do the first week. Or first 3 weeks, I think it was. And after up to lunchtime, the guy came back to me and said, hey, Mats, what's your schedule? And then he tore it apart and said, forget about this. Let's go to Germany next week. Okay, fine, I go to Germany. And I think that's a little bit how the journey in H&M has been, which for me was perfect because you get bored when you sit too long on one seat, right?
Yeah.
And at H&M, I'm working with, like I said, a lot of different things, starting production, where we produced the garments. We had offices I was helping to open up the office in Turkey, Portugal, and so on for production. And then we expanded out to Asia and so on. But during this time, I also was working with logistics, opening up warehouses. That was my thing, and how to get the warehouses in the most efficient way. If you go into H&M today, you're going to see a gray tote. That's the transportation from the warehouses to the stores all over the world. I invented that tote a long time back. I should have to make some money of each tote they bought, but I never did that. So we've done a lot of things, right? And then, what could have been now, more than 20 years ago, they said, well, hey, Mats, you have to go to Bangladesh. I went to Bangladesh. I was a country manager in Bangladesh for 3 years. Loved the journey. And that was for production. And when I came to Bangladesh, we had an office with 10 people roughly. 3 years later, when I left, we were 100 people in the office. So there was a very strong journey we did there and the expansion of the production. Bangladesh is still one of the biggest producing countries for H&M and all the one in the garments industry, right? After Bangladesh, I went to Romania. Then I was the country manager for Romania production also. And then it was Greece, Baltic states, Bulgaria. Yeah, and we lived in Romania for 2 years. The company asked me, hey, come home. You have to start working more with logistics, inbound logistics. But I was home for 6 months, and then we went to Hong Kong, and then we were in Hong Kong for 7 years. And there we started to work with the inbound logistics for H&M. That means everything producing all over the world has to be transported home to all our warehouses. So I was responsible for that, and also actually responsible for everything that was transporting on trucks and sea, all the mode of transport, air, sea, air, and rail. And after 7 years in Hong Kong, we moved back to Sweden, where I continue my inbound, head of logistics for inbound. Yeah, so that's a little bit what I've been doing for H&M. So it's been 35 lovely years, actually, I have to say, and also doing a lot of different things, which has been great.
Yeah, thanks, Mats. Appreciate that overview there. Okay, you've covered a lot. You've probably seen a lot, experienced a lot for sure. So if we steer the conversation towards technology, AI, things like this. So in that time you've spent, so let's take that 35-year period. How have you seen technology change in the industry and in the role you've had? And maybe you can talk a little bit about what it was like when you first started versus then towards the end of the journey and what it looked like.
Sure, 35 years now, we didn't even have computers.
Yeah.
So when you come back, pass by the reception, the guy who had the most yellow notes from the reception saying that somebody had been calling you and you have to call them back, that was the winner, right? The most yellow ones, because then you're very important people. If a lot of people
you're the VIP, right? If you had a stack of yellow. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And what we had one computer, and that computer was connected to the warehouse in Germany, because H&M, everything that they bought, they tried to consolidate into Germany. There was a transit warehouse in Germany, and there was one computer in the whole office, and that computer was connected to Germany, so you could see what kind of garments has been coming in. What we had to do, they had some delivery controllers, and every Monday you have to print out all these lists, the old IBM print with these striped papers. You have to print out all the list for each production country, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Romania, you name it, right? All this. So you have so many lists, you printed out all this paper waste because you only look at maybe the first 4 or 5 of each country. So you can follow up what happened since last week. You have your old paper for last week, you have print out the new one, what's been happening, where is the goods, have it been delivered yet, etc., etc. You can imagine, we were so happy when the container received or arrived in Germany. Yeah, we got some goods. So you never really know when they were coming. You never really know, well, of course, what's coming on time or not. So you can imagine the planning for the stores, the planning at the warehouses, etc., etc. It was,
all paper-based, Mats.
Yeah, we survived.
Pretty much all paper-based, right? Okay.
Yeah, all paper and fax, of course. You know the fax machine, you know what that is?
Wow. Okay, so this was, we're not talking pre-email, are we?
Yeah, pre-email.
We
Yeah,
are.
sure.
Okay.
So this was, we had fax machines. So we had a special station in the head office. There was one lady running the fax machine because we were not allowed to fax ourselves. We wrote them by hand, gave it to her, and she punched it in, and she was the one faxing it. So she knew everything because she read everything. So she had, and they could maybe see me and say, "Hey, Mats, you haven't replied on that fax yet. I saw you got a reminder now."
Okay. Wow. It's amazing, really, isn't it? You think about a global enterprise. Every global enterprise operated like that or some version of that in those times. It's pretty amazing, really, because we're so reliant now on, or we feel we're so reliant on technology.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The next step was that they moved the fax machines, some of them out to the departments. So we got maybe instead of 1, maybe we had 5. And then starting a little bit more and more. And then not allowed to call because to call abroad on the phone to Bangladesh was really expensive. So what I did actually, I was involved in Sweden, all the telephones on Monopoly owned by the state. But then we had a private company coming in, Tele2 came in. So we were one of the first customers to them. So we actually bought our own switchboard, and then we were allowed to have private, so to say, connecting with them instead. And then we start to get the price down a lot on the phone calls. So then we can start calling to our suppliers.
Okay.
But then we have this issue in some countries that people started with fax machines, and then we realized we never got reply during the weekends. So like Friday evening up to Monday, no replies. And that because the factories a little bit afraid somebody going to steal the fax machines. So when the big boss, the owner, when he went home in the evening, he took his fax machine with him home.
That's okay. Okay. Wow. That's not something I imagined you were going to talk about. Okay. Wow. So he carried it. I've seen fax machines, of course. I know of them. They were around. I'm not so young anymore, so I do remember fax machines. They were pretty big.
They were, the first one was pretty big. Yeah.
They weren't like pocket, slip it in your pocket kind of sized. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So it's gone from paper then to fax. Okay.
Yeah.
So email coming in must have been a complete revelation.
Oh yeah, like when I was in Bangla, we start to get satellite. We put a big satellite disk on the roof, and then we could start to have direct communications. Yes, with some kind of emails, if you say like that. And suddenly we start to have a lot of communication, and then we know what's going on and so on. But still, if you go back to logistics, you were happy when you could book something. You were happy when the container left. Where is the container? Woohoo! You didn't really know. You got some information if you were screaming a lot. You got from the carrier used or the forwarders. But whatever they said, how could I check that? They just to keep me calm, they gave me some information, right?
Yeah.
This starting to plan in shop week when the goods really should be in store. That started very late. Of course, there was a rough planning, but what's the accuracy in that one? That was huge difference.
Right. And I suppose, did you face any challenges with the fact that technology, I won't make any assumptions here, but technology in Sweden may have moved faster than technology in the countries in which you sourced and manufactured? Is there ever a gap there?
Yeah. No, it was definitely because the countries we were sourcing from, like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and so on. Some of the guys were very high tech, but the infrastructure was the biggest issue we had. Because somebody wanted the lines, or they didn't have any lines, so they have a flooding or all the disasters, right? So you could be cut for a long time. So when we started to get this bigger office, when we could have a satellite, at least then most of the time it was working. But for smaller offices, then you could disconnect it for a long time, right? Because we don't know what's going on, and that was a big issue for sure. Yeah, and then maybe some owners was a bit forehead, Maybe they had a fax machine, but the other guys didn't have it. And then he has to run to the post office to fax or whatever. So it was a huge difference.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So then that takes us to, we're creeping into, okay, so we've got to email. We're creeping further into sort of modern day now. What does that look like from the introduction of email to pretty much today?
But even if you have emails, of course, then you have the communication, but it's a little bit the same because it's a paper more or less back and forth, right? You have to have a system, I mean, IT system to use instead. And to get that working, and the same thing here in the company I work for, that should be in-house, and then they build something in-house, take a very long time, right? You have to have resources, how much money should you put into this? Are we building the right thing? Is this really going to help us in the future? And maybe it is, yes. But as you know, also during this time, I don't know all these words now, but let's say you were writing it in window based whatever, or whatever, Carbot, whatever the names are, and then suddenly everything changed to window. Wow, we cannot change our system, and we have to rechange that. So a lot of these technical things happen, and a lot the company got dependent on certain people who have the knowledge, maybe not everything. And of course that also creates a lot of issues money wise. Is this the right way to go, etc., etc.? So of course it was good in some way, but it could be better, or you got also it was a big cost. And then to take the next step, where should we go? SAP or whatever should you take next step? That's a huge investment for the company, of course, right?
So I guess this leads us on to the next question, really, which is new technology in supply chain. When you have a large scale organization built on a particular way of working, at what point does that organization say, right, something needs to change? Because sometimes there's a bit of a bubble, isn't there? This is the way we do it. This is it. It's worked so far. We've built a large enterprise on this model. So why change it? I guess in your experience, or have you had experience of that point at which an enterprise says, okay, we need to look at this now?
I think that's very hard to find the point, as you said, because you always have a controller sitting there with the budget and everything, and he sees to invest in a new IT system for a big company, it's a huge cost, right? When should we take the step? When is it right to do that? And what's the benefit to do it? How much money can we save, and so on?
Yeah.
I think sometimes they have to think that way around. Should we survive? How long can we continue like this? Yes, we're making money today and so on. But if something changed, like when online came in suddenly, from going online or mail order, we started with like mail order, call it, and then suddenly we come this online, and sure, were we prepared? No. Big company was just open up new countries made a lot of money online, and this kind of thing was just something that they saw beside. But were they starting to rebuild the system to be IT system or technology to take care of it? No. And then you look at the smaller companies today who are startups who doesn't have these stores. They only have online. How quick they are to change a lot of things, and how more efficient they are or when you look at the IT system they have with the web places and so on, what they can do. And then you look at the big companies, they are far behind. Now it's starting maybe to catch up, but what has the cost been for that? That's a huge cost. Right. So it's extremely hard to say when should we go for it or not. And I think also it's very independent how big your company are. So I think here, like for example, smaller company can be more flexible because they maybe also have to say we should not have nothing in house. We just add on, connect to somebody who has the platform that we can use, and then we take it from there. Which is a smart move, right? Because then they can always change. Not big investment. Of course, it costs some money. Yeah, but how much does it cost to have your own staff sitting doing everything? And if you go the wrong way, how do you get out from it, right?
Yeah.
So I think so it really depends your size of the company and where you are.
Yeah, okay. One way that we've approached it is we tend to do pilots and call them POCs, things like this, as a way to have an agreed set of like success criteria, basically. And you say, right, we're going to test this over a period of X number of months, typically, and this is what good looks like at the end of it. And we found that in a way, it mitigates the risk internally at a large organization because the cost of change is so massive that to make a decision without first testing it, right? In regards to that transition, not transition, but the addition of online then, Matt, so how did you roll that out? Did you start country by country in terms of online? How was that rolled out then when that came in?
It started a little bit like we were based in big countries, and of course we need the online in these big countries. So then you rolled it out pretty quick in these countries. Then of course you come up with this: should be a warehouse in each country, or should we take a unified warehouse, etc., etc. But then also it came up that we have to have online more or less globally. And then they started to have some kind of, call it Asian warehouse, but then you have issues with the customs and all these kind of things, how much that cost and so on. The transportation cost, the warehousing cost, storage and everything, customs clearance and so on is really expensive. And most of the things, then also when online really started, was this next day delivery, 2 days delivery.
Yeah.
But did you really needed that? No, that was just a gimmick, something you needed. But a lot of us a gimmick. I could wait 5-6 days for my garments. I have no rush, right? But no, there should be this possibility to have it next day or 24 hours delivery, or you should have an environment that somebody should come with a bicycle and give it to you. So all these new things popping up, but you have to jump on it because you have to show that you had it. But it costs a lot of money for sure.
And then you've got returns as well.
That's
not
right.
Just the sale itself, but I remember in Asia, particularly Asia Pacific, was a challenge from a B2C perspective because you'd have countries like Indonesia at the time, I remember being particularly difficult. Across Thailand was sometimes a challenge. Some brands that I worked with in a previous life had Hong Kong as the hub, the warehouse, because of the ease of flow, so returns and things like this. But then if somebody's ordering a $12 t-shirt and you got to deliver it from Hong Kong, and let's say you use the cheapest possible option, which even then was pretty expensive, cost of then customs, delivering it then in country as well, and then you've got the time, because as you said, people want it next day, 2 days, 3 days. But in reality, a cheap service out of Hong Kong was sometimes 6-7 days, maybe longer if it got stuck in customs. And then you've got to give them the option to return domestically. Big challenge.
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure. And do you make any money? No.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
No.
probably not. But yeah,
So,
yeah.
but that was in the beginning. Everybody should have it, and everybody should be able to show that. Oh, look how good we are. We have it online for all countries, etc.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
See, first of all, is that partner the right one for me? Is that the guy we should work with? Does he really understand the way we are set up as a company? And how is the feedback? Of course, probably during this time, you always get the best feedback. You have the best guys on the other side because they're so eager to get you as a customer, right? But if they can live up to that and show that you get a good connection, I think that's 2 steps. Like 1 + 1 is 3, right? And also seeing that what they are giving us, that's really something we need. And then together develop with the company, okay, this is what I get today. What could it be in the future? What haven't I, as a customer, thought about with all these setups that they have? What could I give me more in the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea. And then also after whatever period you have, you can say, okay, guys, this doesn't work out. Thank you. Or also have this understanding during the time, maybe say, hey, guys, this is not what we talked about. Can we change something, or should we just say walk away, right? Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea for sure. If you can keep the costs, then that's
I think the cost element is always a factor, particularly in a pilot or a POC for sure. I think, but as you said, a lot of it is attributed to, okay, is this really a problem we need to solve? And if it is, okay, sometimes there's upfront development costs, but the idea behind it is that everybody has a bit of skin in the game. The vendor has to deliver on what they say. And also, it's not just the cost. I think also from at the enterprise, you need people internally in the team to run it. So there's a labor cost, a time cost there as well. So that's also on the customer side, their investment, right? Is I'm going to put a couple of people on this, and then the vendor also puts a couple of people in. So both sides there are investing in the solution. But because of the speed at which technology is changing now, to make a decision, a large scale enterprise technology decision out of the gate presents, I think, a risk to a lot of organizations, because I think a lot of them wonder, okay, what's this going to look like what's the industry or technology going to look like in 12 months? By having this pilot or POC up front, it allows them to get introduced to the technology and then allow it to develop within an organization as technology develops. But we were talking earlier before we started the call about the speed of which things are changing. And by the time you've been through
that's right.
the internal process, it's, now the text changed.
That's right. It's already old, right? Forget about it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's almost more now than ever. If we look at look back at the AI and machine learning and all that kind of area of technology 2 years ago, I remember I think it was maybe less than 2 years ago, people started to make funny images on ChatGPT, and that was like the new technology. And now it's like,
what do you talk about today? Nothing, right? To my knowledge.
it never really picked up, did it? Actually,
No.
blockchain.
I think then if you started and you invest a lot of money to get blockchain going, and then suddenly now 3-4 years later it's doof.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So now this pilot, I think it's perfect to start with, and take it from there. And even let's say you start with a pilot 1 year. Oh, okay, but then maybe it's time to take another pilot, same company maybe, but take this way. We try this, so it's just going to continue. And then because that put a lot of pressure on the guys who are selling it, that they have to develop all the time, coming up with new things, right? Shall I stay with you guys? You have to show me something, right? That helps me.
Yeah, that's true. Some of the conversations we've had around pilots have been, the customers have said that there's so much they want to do that they've actually just cut away a lot of it and said, right, we're just going to focus on this in the pilot. Yeah. This is it. We know there's more to this, but we're going to focus on this one specific use case, and then post pilot, if everything's successful and everybody's happy, then it grows arms and legs as a solution. But yeah, it's that entry point which is key, right? Yeah, it makes sense.
Because also the issue you have in your company, how long is people staying? Because now these guys are running the show and they see it this way. And then maybe suddenly after 6 months or something, these people are gone or somebody else is coming in because the company's not doing that well. And they would like to have another idea instead. But then we have to change the pilot a little bit, or we have to do a little bit, because otherwise we cannot use it, etc., etc. It's not, when I started, it was like very slowly. Everything went very well.
Yeah.
You know what's happening today. You don't know what's happening hardly tomorrow, right? So it's a huge change all the time.
Yeah, true. Do you have any insights into where you think the technology is going in terms of, I know it's a broad question.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's got the answer really, but do you have this image in mind of where it's going to be 5 years from now, if you were to think forward?
No, but just look, the last years, what happened with AI and all, whatever the names are, how technology is really helping us a lot, coming up with solutions or suggestions, learning. Just look yourself when you write something AI tells me, no, Mats, remember what you wrote last time, or I think with your mind, because they know all my AI questions before, I think this is what you should do instead. And I think really here, the technology will help us a lot. If you go back where I'm coming from, the fashion style, of course, you always need a designer, you always need somebody to produce the garment hands-on, that has to be done. But after that, of course, you have to be in a container and all these things. But after that, technology can take over that and ship me my container and come back to me with questions. Okay, this is happening now. It's late. What do you think? What should we do with this container now? Where would you like to have it? Last time you would like to have it in New York instead. Is that okay now this time also? Something like that. And then you can say to AI later on that it's okay for you yourself to take decisions like this due to past before, etc. So I think you're going to have a huge, the technology will help you a lot, and they will always be updated. And they work 24 hours, right? It's not like us. So there's always going to be an answer or questions, and that's going to be easy for us to plan, to show where we are, and hopefully also what we want to do, or how should we change or solve the solutions that appears, right? So I think that, and that also going to be less people, right? Because now a lot of people sit with Excels and stuff like that's going to be gone. All these things, customs clearance, the whole flow in, it's going to be technology for sure.
But Mads, in that respect then, which areas do you think are, to this day, centered around relationships, human-to-human relationships, and will continue to be that way?
I never thought about that. That's a good question.
I can give you, I have an example in mind, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Which is supplier relationships, right? So suppliers, manufacturers at origin in those countries there, how important is the interpersonal relationship there? And do you see that changing in the future?
I would say no. If you talk about, if you produce the garments, for example, a factory, I think the relationship with the owner or the people there in the factory are extremely important, because they have to understand it's not just to produce the garments, it's the code of conduct, code of ethics, environmental thoughts, pricing, of course, etc., and how they're treating the workers and all these things. So that part you can never take away. Then he can be more efficient because of technology, how to produce the garment, more efficient way, better machinery, blah, 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 all these kind of things. But I still think that part. If you then go to a forwarder, I would probably say the same thing. Price, of course, is always important, and how they are fulfilling all these other requirements that you want to have. But then also, I think who has maybe then higher technology will give me more information and accurate information. I think that's accurate information that I can trust on is extremely important. Let's say he's more expensive, but I still probably would like to pay that because the information he gives me, I can plan because it's accurate. I can plan in the future, and that will help me in the future. Because we always used to say, what's important for us, we're not a logistics company, we are selling garments. And for me, it's important to get the garments in the store because that's where I get my money. So even if I have a cheaper transportation, etc., but I cannot trust them because I don't know what they're doing and I don't get the accurate information, that hurts me much more, even if I save on my account, logistics account, I save maybe some money. So it's more important to have accurate and maybe then pay for it a little bit and get it in so I know so I can sell my garments. Or I can do also take decisions where to do if something is late or something is happening.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's always going to be, for me, the way I am, but now in the old school, right? This personal relationship is extremely important. It is.
Yeah. It makes sense. It's also something that we've seen actually. There's it almost makes, as the technology progresses and takes on more of the workload, it feels like there's even more emphasis on the human to human interaction. It makes it, how do I put this, even more, it makes a conversation in front of someone feel more special in a way. When we do in-person events, so we go to conferences, we do exhibitions and things like this, it feels refreshing to just have a conversation with someone.
Yeah, no, it does. It does.
It places more emphasis on it. So yeah, it makes sense what you're saying there. Yeah, I was just curious to hear really your take on that, because I think regardless of what happens to the workforce and how technology shapes and changes the nature of the workforce, the size of the workforce, there will be those, I believe, there will still be those elements of human to human interaction, at least I think in our lifetimes, that will never really leave. And supplier relationships as an example, right? Forwarder relationships, as you mentioned, things like this, backed by obviously technology that, ideally is trustworthy and panic.
And I think also, isn't it always like this when something new is coming out, everybody talks about it, like the online sales, we talked about this 24 hours days delivery. It's such a, but then it goes back a little bit. And it's the same thing here now with all the technology that, we should have this AI here, we talk to them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. But now we're falling back a little bit. We start to feed, we need to have this conversation. We want to have personal relationship and so on. So I think it's always when there's something new coming up, you get so much into it, but then cool down a little bit, take it easy. Use it for sure. We have to use it. We're stupid if we don't do that. We have to learn how to work with it in the best way, but we are the one deciding, and we are the ones who have the personal contact with the customers and so on. I think you're right. It's very important.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's going to be interesting when the kids, next generation, set or whatever they call them, when they're sitting on the SMS to everybody. Are they even going to talk to people? Or are they just going to continue sending text messages?
This is it. It's I look at the way that younger people now communicate, and it's almost a different. The language used is different now as well.
Oh yeah, LOL or whatever the names are. I mean, forget it.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to read that. What the hell?
yeah, exactly. And I honestly, I wonder if some of I wonder if nowadays there's big gaps of time between when they actually physically write.
Yeah.
So for me, I still need to physically write and take notes because that's how it kind of gets into my brain, particularly in meetings and things like this.
There was the AI generator. He was sitting taking all the notes. I said, okay, nice to see you.
yeah, exactly.
Afterwards was perfect, of course. Everything's popping up immediately. So that was great. But the first, who's the
he's in a lot of meetings, that guy. yeah, exactly. Guy. Yeah. Matt, any closing thoughts really before we wrap up that you'd like to mention?
No, but I think we cannot, as we said before here, we cannot sit down and just say, forget about this. We should not learn. We have to be in it and we have to work with it. because it's the future, and that's going to save, of course, all companies a lot of man hours and other things, and it's going to get solutions that we never heard about before, or ideas. But it's so important that everything is accurate. If you talk about logistics, we have to know where the things are, and that should be the real information, and then see what decisions can we take of this for the future, or for the company you're working for, right? And I think this is so, it doesn't matter if it's a big company or smaller ones. I think especially for the smaller ones, probably this is more important due to that. How should they grow otherwise? And how should they be able to connect their IT systems or digitalizations with these huge costs that we're talking about? And now if they then can connect to somebody already and just pay a fee, it's like leasing a car every month, right? Then you can be on that road also, and that could help you a lot in the future. So I think this is really, like I said before, we started with fax machines, right? That's what I started. And then I on the screen, and suddenly, wow, can I write like this? That looks nice.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge development, and you never know where it's going. You're never going to stop. It's just, you have to be on it. You have to be on it.
Yeah. I think it's key there. You said, you just have to work with it, right? It's you're trying to push against the tide, right? Otherwise,
it doesn't work. Then you're out.
Work,
then you're out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mats, this has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
And sharing your insights. And much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Good, Ben. Yeah.
Right. Bye.
Take care. Cheers. Bye.